So, hi guys. Basically, I'm going to show you how my Sony RX10 Mark IV is actually set up in the menus. So, at the moment, you're just looking at a photo of a deer that I'd actually taken. See if you can spot the other one. That's actually just looking at my monitor, my second monitor. So, it just gives you something to look at while we're in between menus. As you know, I shoot manually 99.5% of the time, probably. Very rarely do I shoot in auto. If I do, it's probably in video, and I'll probably go aperture priority with the video, just for something, as a quick clip or something like that. So anyway, let's jump into the main menu. So click on the menu button, and we are in the first page. So quality-wise, I shoot RAW 99% of the time. Image quality, well, you can't change once it's in RAW. You can change your aspect ratio though. 3x2 gives you 20 megapixels. 16:9 is actually down to about 17. So obviously it's cropping a little bit. 4x3, don't actually know, and 1:1, don't really know either, but I shoot at 3.2, which is the 20 megapixels. So coming out of there. Panorama, this is all when you're in JPEG stuff really. Long noise reduction have off. Long exposure noise reduction off. Going to page 2. High ISO noise reduction is off as well, but it's also in RAW, doesn't make any difference, it's always off. Color space, I have in Adobe RGB, but that's because I generally print with a professional printer, and when I'm doing some work, I've got a couple of companies that I either do work with or work for, and obviously print with as well. So shooting Adobe RGB for me is the right sort of color space, but you can have sRGB, which is more likely, if I'm correct in saying this, if you've got a home printer and stuff like that, you might probably find it easier to get your colors correct and everything. Page 3, shoot mode, drive, auto mode, don't use that at all. So you can have scene selection and everything, you can adjust, which I don't really go into. Okay, Siri, fine. Just shows you she's listening all the time, doesn't it? Let's get rid of the phone. Drive mode, I generally use it most of the time in continuous shooting. Obviously you can go in and have it in high, low, obviously, or single shot. But I rarely actually come out of high. And the reason being is I generally let a little burst off. Now you've got to remember the RX10 Mark IV, unless it's in a single shot or you're firing the flash, it's not going to use a mechanical shutter, it's going to use just a sensor turning on and off. So it's actually very much like the Sony A9, where it's literally just using electronic shutter. So it means that's why I can do 24 photos per second, which is zero wear and tear on the actual shutter mechanism. But this has actually got a leaf shutter as well, which is very different to your normal DSLR or mirrorless shutter mechanism. So there's no real wear, but I just find having a couple of shots, sometimes the stabilization doesn't spin up very quickly. I say sometimes, it always takes the same amount of time, but if you haven't got your finger down on the shutter button, it takes about half a second for it to spin up before you get a really stable image. So sometimes you take a couple of shots and you think, oh, that first one wasn't actually quite as sharp as I wanted, and you go to the next one and you think, oh, there we go, it's absolutely fine. Bracketing settings, so I don't really use bracketing very much. Occasionally I might. Obviously you can set it up yourself with the timer. Take 2 shots, 5 shots, whatever. Then we come back out of there. Memory recall, never use it, never have, probably never will, because if you do a particular job, if you do a particular style of photography, I understand the memory recall could probably come in very handy. But because I do so many different types and I'm always doing something different, I mean, if I could be bothered to probably set it up, I probably would, but I'm adjusting the camera on the fly all the time, so it never has a similar setting, so it's always doing something different, and that's why I never really used it, and that's for all of my cameras actually. Next page, Reg custom shoot set, don't use that. Focus area, generally, I mean, you can adjust this, and we'll go into the FN button later, but obviously wide most of the time, so when you turn the camera on, it's in wide, and it's literally, if you need to get something quick, you're pretty much going to hit it. this one here, I never actually looked into this, but I presume AF point plus AF area is whatever SWT VHAF area is. So I've left it on that. AF illuminator very rarely comes on, but it's there, so it's left in auto. Center lock on AF, I have that on. AF with shutter on, and pre-AF off. So pre-AF, if you have it on, it basically rinses the battery, because what it's doing is, as you turn the camera on, it's literally it's locking onto something straight away without you even looking into the eyepiece or into the viewfinder. So that way, it's actually constantly focusing without you having to, and that makes me think about, if I turn that on, will the camera always be locking onto an eye? So if you've got IAF on and it picks up an eye, will it stay on? So I'll have to have a look at that later. So yeah, generally have it off just because it saves battery. AF area register, have it off. AF area auto clear off, because that's obviously something to do with that. Display continuous AF on. Phase detection area on for autofocus, which makes it much faster. Phased eye AF set, which is basically, you can do that via custom buttons later, which I'll do. Reset EVF compensation. No, never use it anyway, because in RAW it doesn't do anything anyway, so never have that on. If you're in JPEG, yeah, you can do. This is basically the ISO, so instead of coming in here, you've got buttons on the back of your camera, and also in other places you can actually adjust your ISO. ISO auto minimum. So if we go and change this to auto, which I never used, go back into the menu. It's not about okay, well, that shows the point I don't use it. So you can actually set auto minimum shutter speed. Oh, okay, so it's minimum shutter speed, I presume you can adjust. Metering mode roughly in the center, because generally what I'm actually going to be getting the exposure from is generally the center of the image, like generally my focus point, so it's roughly that. But because you're shooting manual, I'm adjusting my exposure myself anyway. So let's say spot metering mode in the center. Next page, AEL with shutter auto, exposure standard adjustment, don't use that. Face priority and multimeter, yeah, just leave that on. Flash mode, fill in flash, flash compensation 0, ambient and flash, red eye reduction off. White balance. So this is one of the things that I've actually said to a few people. So when you go to auto white balance, if you go into there, you can obviously adjust it. Let's come out of there. If you click on it, no, sorry. Go into that's your auto white balance. Sorry, if you're going to go down to the next one, you can actually have auto white balance standard, auto white balance ambient, auto white balance white. And what that actually does, I have it set that to white, and you'll realise your colours are much more accurate, because it's showing the whites as being white. So rather than having your white balance, especially if it helps in studio a little bit, to be fair, so you don't have to mess around too much with getting your whites right, but it just helps bring out the real whites in your image, and I just find the colours are better. Auto HDR off. Creative styles, I just leave it in standard, but you can adjust to all the different ones you want to. And obviously this on the screen is not going to be very accurate, because obviously but you can shoot black and white, which is quite nice. And then obviously you've got, if you want, okay, keep going around. But I just leave it on standard, always have done, and it just gives me a neutral colour, basically, that allows me to just keep it pretty much as accurate as possible, pretty much as realistic as possible. Picture profile is off. Soft skin effect, so you can have soft skin effect if you're shooting in JPEG, but I obviously never use that. Focus magnification time. So if you're in so focus magnifier I've actually got off, but if you go into manual focus, if we go into manual focus, does that work? Can't actually tell. there we go, manual focus, you can actually have it zoom in, but I have no limit, because before you had a timer on it of like 2 seconds or something, so it's not really actually helpful, because it just, it zooms in, you think, oh, is that focus or not? So it helps you get things in focus if you're in manual focus. Really handy. So and also manual focus assist, that basically does it automatically, just zooms in every time, which is really annoying sometimes because you don't want it necessarily to. So what I've done is I actually set one of my custom buttons to C1, I think it is, which will then zoom in as I push it. So I start off with a wide angle, for example. I go, oh, is that in focus or not, or it's struggling a little bit maybe, and I shall zoom in and go and just tweak it, and it's good to go. My peaking level is high. I have it in red because it's the most dominant colour. Focus ring, so this is where you can adjust your focus ring rotation. Smile shutter actually could be quite handy if you decide to have it on a tripod and you want to take pictures of yourself and you're just smiling or whatever. Face registration, which means you can actually register a few faces, so the camera actually recognises them. So if you're walking in the middle of a street or something like that, and you only want the camera to focus on you or someone else that you've actually registered their face, there you go. It can actually do so. So you can actually say new registration. I've never actually used it ever, but for video or photos, it could be quite handy. Auto object framing off. Register faces priority, so you can actually also have, say if you had 4 people and you had your first one, second one, third one, fourth one, your first one you have as your main priority. So imagine having 4 people walking down the street. You had your number 1 behind number 2, for example. The camera will automatically find, or say behind, not right behind, so you can't see them, but if they were sort of staggered in distance, you'd actually have the camera still trying to find your number 1, which is actually behind number 2. If you've got rid of number 1, they walked off thing, it would actually automatically focus on number 2, and if you lost number 2, it would obviously go for number 3, and you can adjust that and everything. So in certain circumstances, it's actually quite a handy feature, but for 99% of people out there probably won't use it. I certainly never do. Right, in exposure mode here, so for film this is, so basically, can we go into that? No, because I'm in manual exposure. So, oh, hang on. There we go. Is that right? Okay, right. So exposure mode, basically that when I flick it around to video, I lose the HDMI feed. So can't do that unfortunately, but that's basically exposure mode. It adjusts a few different things, as in like for manual, P mode, aperture priority, and shutter speed and everything. Exposure mode, HFR. So HFR is really cool. So you can actually set that to manual as well, which is really handy. So it gives you full control over your high frame rates or super slow motion. Video formats, I generally shoot in 4K or this next one down, which is 100 frames per second. So if you want it nice and smooth, super smooth, you want to slow it down about 4 times, you can. But if you just want to shoot in 4K, what the benefits of 4K is not just the high resolution, and some people go, oh, it's only 25 frames per second. With that, actually what it means to you, if it's in low light, you can actually slow your shutter speed down to 25 frames per second. So you suddenly got a lot more light coming into the camera, which actually means you can video in lower light at a lower ISO, which is very handy. And that's just your quality. So you said, I generally set it at 100 megabits per second. HFR settings. So this is where a lot of people get a little bit confused about this, and I have got other videos on here about HFR. So if I can find them, I've done quite a few videos now. I'll have to link this to it. But basically, you want to set it at the highest recording setting there, and your frame rate. So you've got 3. So depending if you're in a PAL or NTSC, you'll see a slightly different. So it'd be 960, 480, and I think 240 frames per second. So depending on what your frame rate wants to be, you can choose there. But if you set in the FN button, you can actually set basically a quick menu choice in there, so you don't actually have to go in here. I always have it set a quality priority, so it means you can have up to 7 seconds worth of slow motion, which sounds a lot, but in reality it's not, because you don't need it. This is where the cool thing about this is. So I have it as quality, so it gives you the better quality image quality, and this is where you have your different settings. So I generally shoot end trigger half, because what that actually does is it gives me about 2.5 to 3 seconds, sort of 3 seconds, maybe slightly more, because what actually happens there is, and I've shown this on the videos before, it means I can loop the clip. So basically I set the camera up, I pre-focus and everything like that. And by the way, you can still use the focus once you're locked in to shoot. You can actually adjust your focusing. So if you know something's coming towards you or going further away, you could actually slowly focus with it. With end trigger half, basically you set it up, and then basically it means you'll never miss the shot. Because, for example, if you were going to I don't know, drop some coins in front of you, or drop a mug or something, smash it, there's no way you could push the start button from behind the camera and then get in front of it and drop the thing. Well, you could, but not very easily. Drop it and smash it. But what actually happens there, it means you get, imagine 2.5, 3 seconds, or even 7 seconds worth of time that you're kind of missing, because you've got that delay of getting back around in front of the camera and doing what you're going to do. So end trigger and end trigger half means you basically set the camera up, you pre-focus it on something, whatever your subject is, you push the middle button on the back of the wheel, on the rear wheel next to the screen, to the right of the screen, click that, and then it's looping. So it's looping those 7 seconds or 2.5 seconds, 3 seconds, whatever, all the time until you push the record button. So basically what you can do then is drop it and then run behind the camera and push record, or get someone else to push record. That way you have basically you're never going to miss anything, and it's absolutely brilliant. I love using it like this. Even when I'm shooting a helicopter flying, I'll basically lock the camera once it's got into in focus and everything, lock it, and then just do a few seconds worth of clip and then push record, and it's done. So that works really well. So so up to 5 times slow motion, up to 240 frames per second. Come out of there. Quality dual record. I think this is to do with recording to an external recorder through the HDMI. I don't use that, obviously. Yeah, image size dual record, 17 megapixel or maybe whatever. Auto dual record off. Proxy recording off. AF drive speed fast. So you can have it normal or slow. I have it fast. AF tracking sensitivity responsive, and also slow shutter speed. So for video, it will slow the shutter speed down as much as it can if it needs to bring on light. Audio recording, yes. Audio recording level, I've actually got the adjustment in my FN button, so that's helpful. Audio level display, so it actually shows on the back of the screen. Audio out timing live. I don't really know what this does. Obviously got lip sync and live. I don't know if the camera will actually watch someone's lips and actually try and sync the sound automatically. I don't know. I've never really had trouble with anything being out of sync, so I just leave it as live. Wind noise reduction, actually I leave off, even though sometimes you think, oh, I wish I turned it on. But I've actually got this microphone I'm talking to you from now, which I actually forgot the other day, and should have had it with me. But you can get a bit of wind noise, but you know, it's not the end of the world. Standard steady shot, it works in intelligent, active, and active in JPEGs, but in RAW you just get standard or off. And then we're on to marker display, which is on, and marker settings. So basically you have all your different safety zones and stuff like that, and it basically just allows you more video controls, which I don't really use. Video light, power link. I think you can power a light off the top of you, off the hot shoe kind of thing, or from the side, USB or something. Movie with shutter, I have that off. I don't really know the difference. Probably a mechanical shutter, I suppose. not really sure. Shutter type is auto, so this is where you can flick into mechanical or electric. So depending on what settings of the camera are at, it will pick and choose. So if you have it in high, as in high burst rate, so doing 24 photos per second, it will flick auto to utilize the electronic shutter rather than mechanical, because obviously mechanical can't move that quick. So and then mechanical if you're shooting one shot or using the flash. Release without card, so it means I can take a test shot without the card in. Steady shot on, obviously just as a standard feature. So ring of zoom assist. So with this you can have LMS, range of zoom assist. Not really sure what that actually does. I've basically got it set to optical zoom only, but if I go to JPEG, I actually have it allows me to shoot clear zoom, and clear zoom basically crops in a bit, I think, and then enhances the image slightly. Not really sure. Zoom speed, I've got it at the fast, just so it's quicker, and you can actually, which is quite cool. So depending on what lenses you're used to, you can actually set it to the ring zoom rotate left or right, and then obviously zoom function on ring quick or step or standard. So basically you can actually have it as a normal speed, have it quick, which I have it at, or step means it will sort of do little increments. Not really used that, I've just left it quick. Display button, basically to pick them to do. Zebra I don't use, grid lines don't use. Exposure set guide and live effect on. A live settings effect on is basically gives you your live exposure image on screen or in the viewfinder. It allows you to see exactly what you're going to get before you take the picture. Obviously if your shutter speed is too slow and you've got something moving very quickly, you're going to end up with blur, but it gives you the exposure preview basically live. So when you're shooting in studio, and you imagine if you've got studio flash and you've got a wireless transmitter sitting on top of a camera and you're going to take a photo in studio, if you have setting effect on and you set your camera say f5.6 and 160 per second for ISO 100, you may not be able to see much in there. So you can turn that off and actually go back to more traditional cameras where you actually utilize the light meter and everything, and you actually see an inaccurate exposure image. Basically just like looking down the lens, seeing what you're seeing, but that picture won't look like that at all, unless because obviously it doesn't know what the flashes are doing, doesn't know the power of the flashes, so it's down to you. So that's actually a really helpful feature. When I first got a Sony mirrorless, that obviously was turned on originally, and the first time I went to shoot a studio I thought, oh my god, how the hell do you can I turn it off? Because I can't see anything. I'm actually shooting blind in studio. I mean, it was focusing and everything, but I couldn't see my model. It was just dark. But obviously if you're using constant lighting and you're not using flash, that's fine, because you can see exactly what you're going to get. But as soon as you start using off-camera flash, you know, in TTL it probably helps, but you know, full manual, which I generally shoot because I know exactly what I want to get, you can't see anything unless you turn it off. So there we go. So that's that. Move my mouse that way. Auto review turned off. I bloody hate it. You get almost like a flash in your eye as it takes pictures anyway, so you kind of get to know what you're going to get. Because otherwise, every time you stop, it shows you a picture, and you think, oh, I don't want that. Right, so now we're on to custom buttons. So we've got custom key shoot, so the shooting buttons. So let's go into there. So my control wheel, I've not set it because that's generally not, don't really use it for much apart from scrolling through pictures and things. But you could set that up as your shutter speed or something like that if you wanted to. So custom one, like I said before, was, and I'll show you what they do in a minute. Custom magnifier. So basically I push custom one, it jumps in one and then two, and then goes back to thing. People don't know about this. Bright monitoring is an amazing thing. So if you're out in the dark and you're talking like, you know, you're doing some moon shots or something, or actually probably darker, if you're doing star shots, you're doing some long exposures. For years we would take a torch with us. I mean, still would take a torch with you, but if you haven't, or you want to keep it a bit quiet and you don't really want people to know you're kind of about, you can turn on bright monitoring. Bright monitoring basically slows the shutter speed down on the screen, or the sensor, sorry, and shows it on the screen as almost like night vision. Absolutely amazing. Your frame rate's very jerky, so once you get the camera in the right position, it just allows you to focus, basically, see where you want to set your picture up. I've not actually used it on the RX10 Mark IV, but on the A7R Mark IV, it's incredible. The A7 III, friend Klaus, he tried it, and on his, even with a fast lens, it wasn't as good as the A7R4. A7R4 was like, it was just like night vision. It was completely dark. We couldn't see anything, and it was like, what? That's daytime. So a live, basically, I mean, obviously the shutter speed is very slow, so anything that's in shot that's moving is a bit blurry, but it gives you something to help you compose your image and get it in focus. That's what it's for. But absolutely amazing. Custom button 3, register AF toggle. So I'll show you what that does in a bit as well. Audio signals, so you can have them turned on and off. Drive mode, which is your left button. So on the back of your wheel, so you click on the left side and it'll give you your drive mode. And then right button is ISO, so that's what I was saying about earlier. You don't need to go into the menus, you just got buttons on the back. Down button, I've got it as turn the monitor off, so sometimes when I'm doing long exposures, turn the monitor off, because your EVF won't turn on unless you put your eye up to it, but your monitor's always on, so you can just turn it off like that. That's a custom button, so I've actually put it in there. So basically, just click on something, you go down button, and you just choose what you want, simple as, and click on it. AEL button I've actually got as AF, so autofocus, manual focus, toggle. So quick and easy, just push the button and it just flicks between AF and MF. So basically, sometimes if you just want to do something, you just want to lock the focus from moving, just go like that, it's done. Focus hold button is focus area, so I can literally, that's the side button of your lens. So the left hand side, you've got a button just back from the aperture ring, and also above the focus limiter switch. So you've got full and infinity down to 3 meters. That button there, sorry, I used to lock focus, which I never use because I just toggle the AL button all the time. But that basically means you can switch quickly the focus area. So if you've got your eye up to the thing, you can just go dunk and just change the focus area quickly. So I've come out of there, and then we've got custom keys. So this is my custom keys. So custom one button, this is what I was talking about earlier, and it just follows what I've got in the shoot area. So basically you can pick it for other things. The FN button, once it's in there, you can actually send to smartphone pictures. Focus hold button, so I've also got that set as focus hold as well. So there's other things you can do. So if we went into there, you can, have loads of other things as well. So we'll come back out of there. Come out of there. Right, this is with the FN button. So you've got 12 options basically of what you want to do. So basically, when you push your FN button, which is above your wheel at the back, next to the screen, you can set this up absolutely amazing. So what you use the most of. So it means, if you want to change the face eye priority, so that's goes from animals to humans. Your focus area if you want to, your ISO, not that you really need to because you've got the buttons on the back. White balance if you want to change it, steady shot on and off, shutter type, frame rate, so that's what I was talking about, changing your HFR mode, your shoot mode, and audio record level, so it means I can adjust the microphone levels as well. So that's really, really handy. Lens ring setup, zoom, I have the focus as the smaller ring and the zoom as the bigger one at the back. Movie button always, so the movie button does the movie. Dial and wheel lock, so you can lock off your buttons, it just turns them off if you don't want them. Audio signals is shutter, so you can hear the shutter button, that's it. But you can have all, or you can have it in silent. So that's actually, I think I've got a C3 is my button for those, so it means I can just have it in complete silent, or you can have it just shutter buttons, shutter noises. Because the shutter is a leaf shutter, doesn't make any noise, so it's got a fake shutter noise which you can actually hear, and also it lets you know obviously you're taking in when you're using electronic shutter as well, obviously there's no noise anyway, so that just allows you to know that you're actually taking photos. Sometimes it's you just don't know how many you've taken without just that constant noise. So this is where you can send to the smartphone, control the smartphone, airplane mode. I normally have it on airplane mode on, so basically that saves the battery life and everything. So I normally have that on. So that means you'll see a little plane on the screen. That means basically it will save the battery quite a bit because the Wi-Fi's turned off and everything. Don't really use it. Got Bluetooth settings, all that sort of stuff as well. So you just need to read into this. What else we got? And then playback. I basically have display as group shot. So when you do a burst, so if you do, imagine if you did like a 20 or 30 photo burst, basically it holds it into a little group. So when you're going back to preview, you can click into it with using the middle button, and you can actually flick through just those 20 something shots rather than have to flick through a whole lot of you've actually got on your card. It's quite clever, works really well. Display rotation off, because at the end of the day I'll just turn my camera and I can actually see a full size screen image on the back rather than having it, you know, sort of cropped. Always done that. Enlarge initial magnification, standard mag, focus position, which is quite cool. So basically you can have it in the center of the photo, or for example if you're using eye autofocus, when you go to review your picture and you zoom in, it will go straight to the eye, so it shows you which eye it focused on, and everything's really handy. So you can see. No idea. Motion interval adjustment. Adjust interval of tracked in motion shot video. No idea what that does. Never used it. It's just at 4. I never touched it. That's obviously with playback. Specify printing and photo capture. Never used. Here we go. So monitor brightness and viewfinder brightness. I can't adjust that in here because at the moment we're coming out of HDMI. But basically you can adjust your monitor and your viewfinder brightness. I both have them on 0. I think that's probably the most accurate way of doing it. But what you can do is click on monitor brightness and go sunny day. So if it's a really sunny day, you can actually flip that to sunny day. So basically you can see your rear screen much brighter, and that actually works really well. Also uses a little bit more battery power. Volume settings, I just have it at 15. So if you're playing back a little bit of video, you've got a bit of sound coming out of the speaker. Mode dial guide off. So basically every time you flick the dial, it will be on, and it just shows you instructions and stuff, which obviously I don't use. Delete confirm. So yeah, cancel first, then it will say do you want to cancel, yes or no. Saves you accidentally deleting photos by accident, so it's obviously handy. Display quality is high. Power save start time, I have 2 minutes. So basically after 2 minutes my camera will just shut down to standby. I'm in PAL rather than thing. Touch operation, I turn the touchscreen off at the back, just don't use it. I think they are handy for some things, but you tend to find that your nose starts moving things around, and it's so I just turn it off. And to be honest, you've got all the custom buttons. Once you know that, you don't need it very often. Touchpad settings is off. Not really sure. HDMI settings, obviously. USB at the moment I've got it in PC remote because I'm plugged in. I was plugged in via the USB, sorry, because I was trying out the webcam thing. But normally I have it on mass storage, so if you plug it in, one, it allows you to do updates, like the firmware update, and also it allows you to transfer your images if you need to, but I just generally pull the card out and stick it in a card reader. USB, as I said, multi USB power is on, so you can charge it or power the camera with a power bank. PC remote settings, which allows you to basically tether the camera to your PC or remote control it via a laptop, and then JPEG and save image, but that's not for the moment. Language is English, obviously. Date and time set. Area setting, obviously UK. Copyright info, you can actually set copyright stuff on here, which I've actually never bothered on here, but I have on my other camera. And then file number is I've just have it in series, and then set the file name as rx1 because obviously I've got the A7R4, so I have that A7R written on there, so basically I know which camera it was taken from very quickly. Select record folder, new folder, don't need. And then I have it in date form, so I know what date it was taken. And then obviously up to date firmware, which is version 2. And then you can obviously set your resets back. I have a steady shot on, so basically now we've got my menu. So the start menu they introduced, which is really good on all the cameras now, is actually awesome because you can add different quick menus. So my number one is my number 3 is format, which you utilize all the time. So basically anything from these menus, the main menus in here, to stop you needing to go and try and find it, you can have up to five or six pages worth of stuff. So you can actually add items into these. Oh, gone right too far. So you can actually go in and add more. So you can have more than, you can have like 3 or 4 on this menu here. So you can actually just go into my menu and have format. You could have, like I say, whatever you want to, and it just saves you having to try and find them deep in the menus. So when people say, oh, the Sony menus are junk, blah blah blah, if you've used them long enough, you know where everything is anyway. But this really helps get to things like, I always format my SD card every time I put it back in. Once I've copied the images off, I then format it when I'm going to use it next. So it's always formatted. So it's one of the most common things I actually use. So you know, that's that really. Right, so let's go out of there. So that's basically the menu. So you've got your display button on the back now. It says disp up the top on the wheel. This means you can actually obviously go through your different setups, and you can adjust the way your monitor works. You can adjust the way the rear screen or the viewfinder actually works, have it different. So and then I push the right hand side of the wheel, the back wheel on the sort of back of the camera to the right of the screen. If you push the right hand side, you've then got instant ISO adjustment. If you push the left hand side of that wheel, you've then now got control of your drive mode. And these things here are the things I use all the time. Like I say, you've got the top one is just display, then the bottom one I've got, it's like I said, just turns the monitor off. So now it's just off. So the camera now is just sat there. Both monitors are off, so the viewfinder is off. Until I put my finger up against the sensor there, or my eye, it will turn on. So you can actually walk around with the camera with the rear screen turned off all the time. Obviously push it down and it comes back on, and then we go back to there. Basic stuff there is actually really helpful, but I generally shoot like this, so you can see pretty much everything you need. I know I'm in 4K, I know what my white balance is, I have it in standard, DR is off, AF. So if we go, actually this could work, it should, if we go subject detection animal, is it in there? Oh, hang on. Let's go. It's trying to focus on the screen at the end of the day. Let's see. It doesn't know if it's actually a deer, I don't think. I might be a bit close to the. Yeah, it's. I'll tell you what it's actually doing. It's actually focusing on the screen, as in literally the screen, not the actual image. It's picking up all those lines. So, but anyway, so basically, if you have it on, what I've just done there is gone into function button. And I've adjusted my human to animal. So I generally have it on human. Go back in, and I can obviously adjust. I can actually turn that off. Okay. That's my focus area, but like I say, I've got that, which I'll show you in a second, is on the side of my lens button. ISO, which don't need. Center lock on AF, which you can utilise. My HFR frame rate, so I can adjust the the frame rate quickly. Steady shot on or off, or whatever mode you want to. Shutter type, and auto white balance. That's in that mode, but basically if you have that in video, you'll see the microphone settings and the fact that I've got it in manual for HFR mode as well, so you can change that back to auto if you want to. So we'll come out of there, and now if I push the side of the button on the side of the lens, the left hand side, I then get my adjustments for my focus points. You can obviously select how many you want of those showing on there as well, so you don't, if you only use 3 most of the time, like wide, center spot or whatever, you can. Unfortunately it doesn't toggle through. I can't work out how to get it to do it. On the A7R4 I can literally push that button, which I have on a couple of my lenses, like the 135 G Master. You click it and it basically just toggles through, so you can literally go click 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 and it goes back to the small one. Other than that, it's kind of just messed around. Obviously I've got as you can see here, a full adjustment on the obviously aperture ring, obviously, and obviously shutter speed is the wheel at behind. So the best thing about this setup, and most people probably agree with this, especially seasoned photographers, having an aperture ring is amazing because you can adjust your aperture, your shutter speed on the go. So you're zooming in and out or focusing and changing your aperture with your left hand, and your right hand is doing the shutter and you're taking actual photos. So, and obviously adjusting your ISO if you want to. So obviously ISO can control whatever you want to do. But like I say, I normally keep the camera down to 100 if I can, as much as possible, just generally because that is better image quality. Like I say, the lines you can see at the moment is actually the pixels on my monitor is actually the camera's actually aimed at. So that's got nothing to do with the actual camera at all. It's just literally it's actually looking at a monitor, and that's why it's not focusing very well, because it's so close. I'm actually only about 8 inches away from the screen. That's why. So yeah, obviously I've got no card in there at the moment flashing at you, but other than that, it's absolutely brilliant camera. As you can see there, the exposure compensation is showing us the exposure difference is what he thinks is correct. So we're about 0.0 on there. Yeah. So if you're shooting in manual all the time, your dial does nothing. But if ever in auto of any sort, I think P or auto, and also aperture priority and shutter speed priority, it will. But like I say, for me, I never use it because I'm always in manual. Anyway guys, hope you have a good Christmas. It's almost there, aren't we? Not far away. Might be a couple more videos to come soon, but hope everyone has a good Christmas. Hopefully this is helpful to somebody, even if it's 1 or 2 people. You know, it could be helpful for setting up stuff. As I say, there's a few things in there I don't even use, a couple of things I don't even know what they do, probably because they're not useful for myself. Other than that, you know, the basic settings is how I work. For example, that function button is very helpful. So guys, I hope that was helpful in some respects. I know some things I've not actually gone through on that on those menus, because some of the menus bits I don't actually use and never will. Some of them are ghosted out because I don't shoot in auto. If you shoot in auto, that's absolutely fine for you, but you'll have to experiment to see exactly what those certain settings do. For me, I'm a raw shooter, and you know, I shoot in full manual most of the time. You know, like I say, to get the best image quality out of this camera, you need to keep it down at ISO 100 for less noise, and it's super sharp. Up to around about f5.6 is where you want to go. Apparently the lens doesn't really deal with anything above that very well, even though it still looks pretty sharp even at f16 to get some nice starbursts. And also your shutter speed, you've got right up to a ridiculous 1/32,000th of a second. Remember the days of some cameras that would only ever do 1,000th of a second, you know, film cameras, you know, or even the entry-level DSLRs and mirrorless, they're 1/4000th. The A7R4, for example, is 1/8000th, and this thing goes miles past that, which actually in some respects helps loads, because you know, if you're shooting at f4 on a bright summer day and you're shooting into the sun, for example, or whatever, and you're shooting, you know, at really bright light, you might need 1/32,000th of a second. And I have used it, so it does allow you to do things that other people can't. So you know, it works quite nicely. So, but anyway, that'll be that. So I hope everyone has a good Christmas. There might be a couple more videos coming. I shall definitely be out on Christmas Day, hopefully, if it's sunny, with the camera. I'll be snapping away, doing a few snaps here or there, and obviously there'll be a video there and then. Don't forget to click the subscribe button, also the little notification bell as well. Please share these videos, means a lot. I know I don't script any of this, and I'm not perfect at all. Some YouTubers out there have got some amazing stuff, but I try and keep this as realistic as possible, and you know, sort of real world use, rather than just a, you know, review on something, you know, that someone's used for about a day or two. You know, I'm utilizing this, I've used this now for over 3 years, or 3 years 2 months actually, and it's still amazing now. So whatever Sony decides to bring out next for the Mark V version, or something to do with that sort of style of camera, I'm sure it's going to be amazing. But the RX10 Mark IV until then still goes on, and I've got thousands of people using it now. So I think it's one hell of a camera. It does 90% of what we really need generally for everyday use. Obviously some things it can't do. Low light's not all that amazing, but for sports, wildlife, general use, having that 24 to 600mm lens is incredible, and it's just a joy to use. Yes, you can't zoom in and out while you're focusing, that's the biggest bugbear of the camera really. I can deal with the high noise problem at higher ISO, but the fact that you can't, I wish this it was a manual zoom lens. I think that would make all the difference. One, it'd probably save power, but I don't know if they could make it work, if you know what I mean. I think it might have to be a bit bigger if they did that. But anyway guys, I should leave that to it. Like I say, what you're expecting for Christmas, leave a comment below. What do you want for Christmas? I can imagine there's going to be some RX10 Mark Vs written in the comments. Other than that, I shall see you soon, and watch out for the next videos coming along shortly.